Welcome everyone. This is one of our flagship once a month event that Naveen puts together. We look forward to hearing my story speaker today. But before we get on to that, I really want to talk a little bit about the events that are happening in the month of September for Silicon Valley. We have the mini MBA, the second cohort that's starting out. We got phenomenal, appreciation and a lot of feedback from the first cohort. We had 60 entrepreneurs from 14 or 15 chapters from around the world who participated in that program. It's a very good initiative that Paul Singh and Naeem organized it, capturing the journey right from the ideation all the way to finding an exit to the company. You get a journey of the entrepreneurs captured over a multiple weeks program. It's very experiential. They make you present and all that stuff. So for those of you who are on the call today, and if you want to participate in that, I strongly recommend that you join that. And the other one is that we have got finance and legal clinic, where again all aspects of company formation, the nuances related to the legal and the accounting, we are also doing that. So those are sort of the two major member-related events that are happening that are, learning component, right? As you all know, TIE is all about educating the entrepreneurs, providing networking opportunities, providing opportunities to connect with customers, also help with funding introductions, and then as well as mentorship. So even we have trying out a new way of mentoring also. So I would strongly recommend that people sign up for that. So with that said, I don't want to take a lot of the time. Again, we welcome everybody on behalf of TIE Silicon Valley. Let me introduce Naveen. Naveen Bisht is the founder and CEO of Akitra, a cybersecurity and compliance automation startup. He's a serial entrepreneur and has founded numerous companies in the security and networking infrastructure industries. He was a founder and CEO of Strax, SecureAct, 99 Networks, and UKS Software. It was acquired by Novell. He's a past chair of various programs at TIE, and he was a board member of Silicon Valley. And he's been very, very religiously driving our My Story program back from 2011 to inspire budding entrepreneurs, extracting good stories from a successful entrepreneurs, as we are going to hear from Kumar today. He pursued PhD studies at University of California, Santa Barbara, and holds MS from Texas and BSMS from BITS. He holds 5 patents in the areas of AI, security, and networking, and has published several papers and articles on entrepreneurship and industrial trends. So welcome, Naveen, and looking forward to another great session from you. Thank you.
Thank you, AGK. Appreciate the kind intro. Before we get started today, a couple of just a few items for this amazing event. Number one, please start thinking about all the questions you want to ask Kumar today. I'm sure you'll learn a lot from his insights, and so make sure you can put it in the Q&A section. So after we go over, he goes over his story, then about like 6:30 or so, we will start the Q&A session, and we'll try to cover as many as possible. Okay, so with that, we'll get going. And so we're really excited to have, I call it an amazing entrepreneur who is going to share the nuggets of wisdom, as AGK likes to call, about how to create a multi-billion market category, and also basically take on deeply entrenched incumbents and establish a leadership position. For Kumar, it was identifying first the technology transitions that could deliver 100x customer value compared to the legacy solutions. But for David to disrupt the Goliaths that dominated the market, it was also necessary to disrupt the business models as well as the go-to-market process. So Kumar co-founded with that vision CloudGenix back in 2013, and a company was successfully acquired by Palo Alto Networks last year in April for $420 million. Kumar is currently Senior Vice President at Palo Alto Networks. And prior to this, he has held a number of leadership positions in product management and marketing at Cisco. Previously in his career, he managed application and infrastructure at large companies like Citibank and Providential Financial. He holds an MBA from UC Berkeley, as well as a master's in computer science from University of Bombay. And without taking too much of thrill, I would like to hand it over to Kumar to share his exciting, colorful, and amazing entrepreneurial and professional journey with us this evening. So let's give him a virtual round of applause. Kumar, here is to you.
Navin, thanks much for that introduction. And first off, thanks to everybody who has joined in today. Couldn't be more excited to share the journey of CloudGenix and really some of the lessons that came about as we went through the journey. In 1972, there was an iconic movie that came out, The Godfather. Many of you probably have seen it. I credit that movie with coming up with a lot of dialogues or concepts that made it into the popular lexicon. One of them being, it's business, it's not personal. The Godfather famously explains many of his decisions, saying it's business, it's not personal. You have to be clinical about many things. And so it's made its way into popular business lore that you have to have that separation from your business itself. For the much fewer numbers of people that have read the book, on his deathbed, when he's handing over his business to his son, he says, it was always personal, never business, right? All business is personal. When I think about the journey of CloudGenix, the number one thing that stands out to me, it was a journey of people, right? Whether it was our customers, our employees, our investors, it truly was an absolutely an unbelievable coming together of phenomenal people doing phenomenal and going after a phenomenal mission. I think it started with people and it continues to go on with people. I'll take about 20 to 30 minutes here, maybe talking about different parts of the CloudGenix journey. I'll go a little bit in chronological order, but it's hard to compress a 7-year journey in 20 or 30 minutes. So I'll touch on some key things that I think can be useful for the audience out here. The very first is our relationship with risk. For most of us, depending on our background, I think we have a very flawed relationship with risk. We have an instinctive aversion to risk. We have an instinctive sense that, hey, maybe I need to take care of my current circumstance, maybe do more entrepreneurial things or things that seem more risky, more down the line. I think it couldn't be further from the truth. For multiple reasons, not the least of which is if you think of a graph in your mind of risk and your ability to absorb that risk, what the VC industry does is dramatically lower the bar on what is a risky investment. The second is when you think about the objectives you want to accomplish in your life, I think what we will realize is that risk really is opportunity. Right? It wasn't that easy and apparent to me. Back then, I'd spent a little over a decade at Cisco, and I definitely had risk aversion. This is all the way back in 2012. And in my case, I found it useful to exit out of the circumstance, right? Get a little bit of perspective. So I made a little trip to Australia. It was a very memorable trip back in, I think, December of 2012. My daughter, Ananya, she was I think less than 7 at that time, or just about 7 at that time. She had her first teeth knocked out on the flight, or she lost her very first teeth on the flight. That set the tone for that trip. And having landed in Sydney, we did a road trip in a juicy camper all the way to the Gold Coast. And that really helped me put distance from the daily circumstance. I think for those of you that are looking to start your companies, thinking about risk, thinking about, hey, is this what I really want to do? Highly encourage you to take yourself out of your daily circumstance, put yourself in a place where you are able to evaluate what you really want to have accomplished. when you're ready to hang up the boots. And they suspect that'll help change the relationship with risk. If that doesn't do it for you, I got another idea. On the beaches of Australia, you'll find these very scary signs, right? Almost any beach. Crocodiles inhabit this area, and you see this beautiful beach and you're a little scared to definitely step into the water, but even to hang by the beach if it's all by itself. But after you see these signs, what you also see are people who can control risk, and they're actually, if not playing with crocodiles, playing with, at least with their digits when they're messing with these crocodiles. And that allowed me to take on risks that were in my comfort zone. And so you see that little crocodile, right? Smaller risk than that monstrosity that could chew off my head. Got comfortable holding that critter in my hand. So it was definitely time to take the plunge. The second big question that oftentimes I hear from budding entrepreneurs is that, I'm not sure I'm ready yet. Either I'm not ready, or the market's not ready, or something else is, I just need to dot the I's, cross the T's, feel more comfortable, feel more ready. The reality is that every interesting entrepreneurial opportunity is going to be done in the absence of complete data. If you have data, it's no longer an entrepreneurial opportunity, right? It's for much larger companies to come and crush you. So and this is why I say that our relationship with risk is flawed. If you wait, it gets riskier. If you're willing to jump faster, even though it feels uncomfortable, you're actually de-risked. And so take the plunge. In my case, I did that on Feb 15th of 2013. And I angled my car. This is my beat up Honda Accord. And I angled my car so I set my building. That's building 22 in the background. It shows up in the side view, rear view mirror. And I posted this out feeling very slick about myself, that I was very coolly suggesting that I put my corporate job in the rear view mirror. I woke up the next morning, Feb 16th at 3 a.m. in the morning with acid in my stomach and wondering what the hell had I done. I'd left a perfectly great job to dive into the unknown. And that's where it's really, really important to make sure that you have your people. I genuinely believe that as you find your tribe will find you. And as I talk about the CloudGenix journey, what you will see really is that it really was a journey of as much finding my tribe, which was finding myself. And then once you have clarity about who you are and what you represent, the people who find that appealing and who have a similar set of shared values, they automatically join you on your journey. Early on, my engineering co-founders, they joined the journey. So having put in our papers, the first thing, of course, was to raise some money. And we were somewhat thoughtful about it, right? Our thesis really was that, hey, there's probably about, God knows, 100, 200 pitches being done on Sandal Road every single day. And we're going to be one of them. The average VC invests in 3 to 5 opportunities a year. So if you think about the arithmetic, it doesn't look very attractive to get a tier 1 VC to fund you. So we were very clear that we had to stand out, right? That when we made that pitch, when we made that argument, it truly stood out. So the thesis we had, and I had in my head, was that, hey, there's lots of things that are common for many startups at that stage. We were 10 slides and a pony, right? We hadn't built a stitch of product because we were very clear. It's an enterprise class product. We were going after a wide area network market that requires serious funding to build a enterprise class product. We couldn't build it in the garage, so to speak. So what we said is, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stand up a dozen or so customers that are willing to tell the VCs that if this product is built, they will likely become customers. And so I thought that I had a powerful Rolodex from my time working at large companies. I prided myself on my customer relationships. I started picking up the phone, calling people, letting them know I was on my own. And it was amazing how many phones slammed down. It was a very rude awakening, right? I didn't have a job, and here what I thought was my calling card and my core strength didn't exist. So the relationships I had, they were relationships based on my badge, not really me. I hadn't really done much for any of them. So I had to it became this either sink or you're going to figure out how to swim right in the middle. And that's where I go back into a little bit into my roots. I grew up in Mumbai. And one of the things that absolutely fascinates me about Mumbai, now that I have some perspective from distance, is Mumbai is a city of hustle, right? It's a city of jugaad, the Hindi word for hustle. And what it means is you never give up, right? You just figure shit out. That's what you do. And so, there's a million auto rickshaws and they're always trying to figure their little angle to get ahead on the streets, their little angle to be more attractive to the next customer that comes by. So we figured our path. And the way we figured it was we started cold calling customers on LinkedIn, off lists, and everything else. Extremely uncomfortable. Never done it in my life. And for all of us that have picked up cold calls from telemarketers, I was the guy on the other end. And without the skills of people that do it for a living. But that's the power of hustle. Either you learn or you die. If you survived it, you learned it. And it also sheds any ego that you have, right? It becomes this very, very pure effort. One of my very good friends, he describes entrepreneurship like meditation, right? And truly is, because you have to take out all extraneous things and focus on the task at hand, learn new things. I have a deep appreciation for business development, which is a starting role in any sales organization, because I got my rear end handed to me for a couple weeks here. But soon enough, we were able to line up a pretty large number of customers who are willing to make calls to VCs on our behalf, saying that, hey, this transformation is real. If this team builds it, we will buy it. And so in early to mid 2013, we raised our very first round of funding. We had 10 slides or maybe 20, and we raised close to $10 million. What you'll see, this slide is literally the cover of the pitch deck that I used all the way back in 2013. One of my VCs sent it to us when we got acquired. What's absolutely lovely for me about this slide is that we invented the category, right? We invented the term, we invented the category. And after this, we thought we were off and away to the races, right? Money in the bank, life's great, got 10 million, more money than I'd ever had. And then you realize a sovereign reality. What is a startup? It's a dying entity, because a startup is not customer funded, right? It's not an ongoing concern. If you think about a startup, I tried putting together this slide. This slide summarizes to me the journey of almost any startup out there. So if you think about it, time grows, money shrinks. And you start when you get your very first round of funding, or when you get started, you're at this very top of this decision tree. And it turns out there is one leaf node. That is the magical node with max return to your employees and shareholders. Many nodes, the vast majority of nodes, are abject failure. There's probably some nodes here that are reasonable outcomes. So you're sitting up at the very top of this decision tree, and you're trying to figure, before I run out of money, how do I navigate my decisions in getting to that magical node? And that's the journey of a startup. The most important piece in that journey, right? And if anyone knew, sitting at the top of that decision tree, oh yeah, this is exactly where I need to land, then they are savant, right? And there's few, if any, savants out there. For most of us, if you don't want this to be hope, but make this a plan, there are actually more deliberate ways to navigate this. Step one is acknowledging that this is what you're trying to do. And the most important piece in this journey really is finding product market fit. I was super fortunate. There's a gentleman by the name of Steve Blank. Some of you might have heard about him. I'd taken a course from him. I think it might have been his very first course on customer development that he provided at UC Berkeley. One of his students, Eric Ries, took the great theory of Steve, converted it into a pretty compelling work methodology for product market fit discovery, the lean startup. We followed it to a T, right? We followed Steve's work and some of Eric's implementation, but more importantly, we were just very cognizant of the journey that we were on. Everyone should find models that they enjoy and they're comfortable with and works for them, but have a model, be deliberate about it, because everything else that we talk about matters zilch, right? Culture won't save you from not having product market fit. You'll be the best assembly of people that fail. Find your product market fit and invest in it very consciously. In our case, what we did is we said, okay, we want to anchor and then pivot, right? But you have to have an anchor. I think you can choose to be unanchored. I think the chances of dying very quickly if you're not anchored are very, very rapid. So you really need something to serve as your anchor. Oftentimes in technology, in Silicon Valley startups, we tend to anchor on technology. Hey, I invented this cool new way of doing things, this faster, cheaper, better widget, and that's my anchor. And then you're pivoting to try to find the right use case. That approach can work. I think it's much better to anchor on the problem statement. So our true north was our problem statement, right? Which is, hey, we can deliver 100x better network. We can enable cloud transformation for our customers. We can change the economics of how infrastructure is built. That was our anchor, right? So we were in the fortunate position of not inventing cool technology and trying to find a use case for it. We had absolute conviction. We went through pivots, but we had 100% conviction on the problem statement. That helped us. It worked for us. Find your anchor. And then you do have to pivot rapidly, right? We went through some pretty intense pivots. There was one pivot I remember where we had a very, very cool technical approach that we needed to go away from. Now, we actually tried creating products. The company was organized at that time, the entire company, to find product market fit. We weren't organized to build stuff. We weren't organized to sell stuff. Yes, we were building stuff. Yes, we were selling stuff. But the entire organization was about finding product market fit. That was our singular goal back then. And when we built a prototype or an early product, we took it to our customers to get validation. Hey, will it work? Is there friction in the motion, etc.? And we found one of the most beautiful architectures that we were in love with. Wasn't a great thing from a market friction perspective, and we pivoted out of it. And in one of the pivots that we made, I'll forever credit one of my co-founders, Anand, where he disagreed with the pivot because technically he didn't like the elegance or the non-elegance of the alternative solution. But once we made the decision, we never had to second guess it. He stood super strong. The rest of us could be off doing whatever. He was super strong in ensuring that that decision stayed. So it's important that your team knows that, hey, once you reach your decision, right, didn't matter if you didn't like it, we just in it together. If you don't find product market fit, you're going to have to either sell your company for technology bits and pieces of the people. If not, return money to the investors. Don't wait till money runs out. I say it to emphasize how important that is. If you do find your product market fit, right, invest some thought on thinking about, is it a feature, is it a product, or is it a platform, especially over the next 3 to 5 years. In our case, early on, I wasn't sure if it was a feature or a product. And we actually built the product such that it could slide in behind existing networking products. And we actually invested quite some engineering capabilities called the inline card, which was really designed to enable that. But quickly we realized that it had the gumption to be a full-blown product, right? And then we just went chips all in. We put in so much effort into making sure that the journey from feature to product was very rapid and we didn't lose any time in that journey. It's something worth paying attention to. There are entire marketplaces where you see the collapse of exits because people didn't pay enough attention to, is the technology bit that they're creating, is it a feature or a product? Don't get carried away by analyst reports against that. The next thing then is to find your sales market fit. And what I find really is that by then many companies are a little tired, right? You did all this great effort in building something that especially the founding teams get a little tired, and people don't innovate as much in go-to-market and sales. Find your energy, right? And if you can't find energy, get people that can actually innovate. Don't underestimate the massive amount of impact your company is going to have. Because if you did all the work to get product market fit, don't lose the intensity and the energy. In the case of CloudGenix, we were beyond lucky. We found some incredible people, and I choke up when I think of it. It's Matt Hickey, you see Rob Sexton, you see Jennifer Dwyer, and reach out to them on LinkedIn. These are some of the greatest people on planet Earth. They're great human beings, and as importantly, incredible sales leaders. They brought innovation to sales the way very few people have seen. The popular wisdom in the Valley back then really was you co-locate your BD teams, you co-locate sales teams with engineering. We broke each and every rule. Matt literally moved family to go to Raleigh, created a new model of selling with 1:1 BD sales, SE, which was 2x to 3x what every other startup was investing, especially in BD. He had a model, but in him and Rob, they came up with a model of hiring where it really wasn't based as much on your background and experience. What they found is that if you hire athletes, and I literally mean athletes, hence you can see all three of them are either in a athletic posture or Jen's holding some baseball bats to whack us on the head with. Matt and I, we were out in Philly. We had a chance to run up the old rocky stairs there and get a little workout that day. But so we hired incredible athletes from NC State and all over the place. And what was important for us was if you had discipline, the desire to win, hatred of loss, teamwork, commitment, all the good things, and you'd learned it, then we took on the onus of training you into the technology bits and bytes. That was the easy part, right? So we had kids that were badly out of college, kids that were, waitressing not a week ago, picking up the phone, talking to the CIO of Colgate, getting a meeting for our sales teams. It was incredible. Fortune 500 CIOs having phones picked up, and an entire engine was created. So it was enormous amounts of innovation in our go-to-market, as well as in how we approached many, many things. This is a photograph from Napa Valley. This was our President's Club. Now, 100% of companies, President's Club is based on, did you meet quota? How well did you overachieve, etc. Matt, Rob, they put the money where our mouths were, or our thought process was. The thesis was, hey, if you have, rather than measuring lagging indicators like revenue, measure leading indicators, activity, and all the work that actually goes into a predictable outcome on sales, that if you do have that, the results will follow, right? Some people can get lucky. Yes, we all love lucky people, but we're not going to celebrate being lucky, right? We celebrate people that have a plan and then get lucky. So our President's Club was entirely composed of leading metrics rather than lagging metrics. Now, of course, the correlation between all the leading metrics that were built, measured, monitored in CloudGenix and people that consistently outperformed was absolutely crazy. The biggest smile on all our faces was when our first sales lady, she made $1 million, right? It was golden letter day in the history of the company. And there was Van standing right there. As we loop out of time here, we'll cover 2 or 3 other topics, right? Let's talk a little bit about marketing. Now, clearly, we can't go into too many depths. We'll cover marketing, a little bit on finances, financial aspects, and then we'll bring this home with a couple of learnings. So I think the most important thing we did in marketing really was recognize the fact that we were category creators. Category creation is extremely deliberate. It is still a poorly understood work stream, I think. There's better understanding these days in the Valley, but it's still a very, very poorly understood discipline. In our case, we were very, very clear that we were creating a category. This is a quick aside. That's my daughter. I think she was about 8 or 9 then. She fancied herself the very first CMO of CloudGenix. I fancied her as the first and last CMO of CloudGenix. This one is, she actually created a whole bunch of content and branding materials and wanted to present to our marketing team over lunch. And they were very gracious and kind with her. And I'm going to use it as a segue to talk about a sprinternship program that our company created, where any child of any employee, irrespective of age, could come in over the summer break and spend a week doing things that they could potentially learn from, right? So one of my fondest memories is of taking Ananya to Raleigh, where our BD team was there, of knowing of Jake Sexton, Rob Sexton's son, who had an incredible week in Raleigh. And hopefully he learned some great things, but he really contributed a huge amount of value back into the company. And so it truly became a people affair. Now, when it comes to category creation, you have to be bold. So we went out all the way in 2014, declaring our category. And we weren't shy, right? We put a heavy emphasis on naming the category, working with analysts, working with customers in helping to create the category itself. It takes a lot of discipline, right? And it takes focus, and you have to work with analysts, customers, the marketplace to ensure that you create a category. Now, why do you want a category? Categories are what get budgeted, right? Any CIO has a long list of positive ROI project any given year. Things that have become hot categories, they're the ones that bubble up to top 5 priorities for the year, and they get budgeted. So as the company goes along, sales velocity increases dramatically. When you're creating a category, you have to be bold. You also have to recognize, are you disrupting an existing category, or are you creating a net new category? Because the actions you take are very, very different. You were disrupting an existing category. So you're disrupting an existing category. You do want to go up against the legacy vendor in that category and make sure that the market knows how dramatically different you are. Salesforce did that with Oracle and SAP. We did that with the legacy network vendors. So we actually, this is a photograph. We ran a very open campaign. We were out at Cisco Live at Cisco's show, and there's an interesting story of how we rented a restaurant, and we had Cisco products laid out, CloudGenix products laid out, zero cheats. They were laid out in a Pepsi versus Coke style tasting battle, and customers, CCIs, Cisco employees, anyone could come, try out either product, and let us know which they preferred. And it turned out that most customers, what they found is that they absolutely loved CloudGenix. So it was very provocative. It was very in your face, but it was with a desire to ensure that the market knew that there is a very strong new alternative, and it's 180 degrees from the past. And the market appreciated that. Having created the SD-WAN category, down the line, we were not shy in creating one more category. And we called it the Cloud Delivered Branch or the Cloud Delivered Enterprise, and then worked with the analysts. It subsequently got named as the SASE category, which recently Gartner, I think, projects it to be about, if I have my numbers right, don't quote me on it, I think about $35 billion in the next 3 years, which makes it even bigger than something like the next-gen firewall category. And when you're creating the second category is infinitely harder than the first. And what you'll find is that it requires like directive energy, right? So this one was one of those things where you sidestepped at that point what had gotten to be a mid-sized company. And there was just a very, very clean line of communication with 2 or 3 people who just said, okay, I'm just going to go code it out, build it out, and then we're going to go launch it, and we're going to go create it. Because again, even though when you're creating a category, not everyone's going to see it. The naysayers are going to outnumber the people that believe in it. If you got in this part of the journey, right, usually by this, your product has a good chance that it's gotten fat, floppy, and it's bleeding at the edges. The companies that succeed are the ones that have someone in the organization that guards the product with their lives. I have zero idea how you can sell products without a soul. If a product doesn't have a soul, I don't think a startup can be successful. Definitely not in a category of the market where you're selling high value, right? We all enjoy products with a soul. The iPhone has a soul, right? Steve Jobs famously had a lot of focus on it. Tesla cars allegedly have a soul, but products that don't have a soul, nobody gravitates to them. Nobody falls in love with them. Customers have a million reasons not to buy from startups, right? Do they exist? Do they get crushed? Do they get funded? The reason they buy is because they fall in love with the product and the people. Make sure you have someone in your organization. For us, we had our founding co-founder, Anand, who guarded the soul of the product like nobody else, right? This was the most beautiful product, networking product on planet Earth, bar none. Absolutely no other product was more beautiful, whether in its UI, whether in the application focus that it had. You just didn't have anything else on planet Earth. And there were a million reasons and a million deals for which people wanted to break it, but you could just never get through Anand, and he guarded it with his life. Make sure you have someone like that in your organization. I'll touch briefly on the financials, and then we'll start closing out. When it came to finances, we made a pretty big mistake along the journey. So, given that we were this little unique company, right? We had a box, and then we had a subscription against the box. The box was sold as TCV. The subscriptions were clearly subscriptions that, if you look at valuations at most VCs, they've transitioned out to a SaaS-based model. So we were caught in this place where we were operating the company as a TCV company, right? Classic 3-year, 5-year product sale. That's how the company was being metriced and measured. And then when it was time for fundraising, we were reporting SaaS metrics. And the two don't come together, right? You will find the gaps in it, or the VCs find the gaps in it very easily. So we did have to integrate how we operated the company with how we were going to measure and metric and report that again to our VCs. I remember sitting down with Matt after closing a particularly difficult round of funding and saying, man, can't wait for this fiscal year to end. I think it was 6 months away. Once it ends, I think we just need to transform to a SaaS-based company. And Matt looks at me and says, sorry, why do you want to wait for 6 months? Why are we not doing it right now? I was like, you don't disrupt sales in the middle of the year. You just don't do it. Matt's like, yeah, I got it. We made, from the point of decision to execution, I think it was less than a week or something. And it speaks volumes, not only to the speed at which we moved, but also to the character of our sales leadership. There was Matt, there was Rob, there was Jen. They were not just, the fallacy is that, sales is coin operated. No. Sales leadership are truly part of the founding part of the company. They just come in at a different time, right? You can't come in when people are still building product, but when they come in, they are the founders in the company. And we pivoted to a SaaS-based model like this overnight. I know of no other company that did that kind of a pivot middle of the fiscal year without impacting anything. Having done that, we don't have the time for me to go into a spiel on NRR, net retention rate. For any of you thinking of starting companies, running companies, growing your business, do yourself a favor, go read a book on SaaS metrics, understand the guts and glory of net retention rate and the magic that happens with your net retention rate. My bet is this. For almost any of your businesses, if you spend thoughtful time thinking about net retention rate, how you can optimize, how you can manage the entire cycle, all the way from product to marketing to sales, and put that into a healthy loop, you probably have the opportunity to at least double your valuation. It's a tall, hefty statement. I'd take it to the bank if I were listening to it. What were the top 3 lessons we learned? And then we'll talk about the top 3 takeaways that I have. Top 3 lessons. First off, timing and speed of go-to-market scaling. After doing all the heavy lifting on product market fit, as you find your sales market fit, again, it goes back to our relationship with risk. When companies truly pour gasoline, right? Everyone says in their press releases, yeah, Series C is to pour gasoline on sales and go to market. Very few companies actually then go and put all their engines behind it. Don't make that mistake, right? What feels like less risk is invariably more risk. You have to go all out. And don't start getting timid. You don't start these journeys to be timid. Don't get timid along the journey. Second, remove culture cancers quickly. If there was one thing I would change in retrospect, you protect your culture through hiring, but you really protect your culture through firing. It sounds harsh, but if someone's a culture cancer, they need to be working elsewhere, right? They'll have a great life, a great career, just not with you. And then third, we spoke about it. All business is personal. There is absolutely nothing in a startup or hopefully at any work you do where you can dissociate yourself. I'll share a very quick story. When we were in Alpha, there was a company with about 1,000 locations, which meant a lot for us back then, who wanted to take our product and deploy it in production, beating the competition and everything else. My co-founder and I met with the CIO. I was trying to pressure test what were they really going to go deploy it within the next 4. I think he had a 3-month deployment window or some such thing. I was like, that's probably not true. It's probably going to be 12 months, 18 months. And he says something about a big, hairy, audacious goal. And he was like, yep, I'm deploying it in the next 3 months. And I remember looking at him and saying, you shouldn't deploy our product. Your team loves it because it's in the lab. They're still in alpha stage. We're not ready for prime time. And he was like, man, you guys are among the first people who actually are saying, don't deploy my product when so much of your fortune could change like this. If you start with a 1,000-site customer, an extremely well-known retailer as your very first customer. But I think we had the good sense to treat his business the way we treat our own. And 7 years later, he was the CIO of the company that acquired us. And not only had he deployed our product because he had huge trust and faith in us as and when we were ready, when they did reference checks on the people, on the integrity of the company, he had nothing but great things to say. So treating others the way you'd like to be treated is not a bad thing at all. The big things I learned, 3 big things. First, risk is opportunity, right? I think we all feel a little uncomfortable, right? The belly feels a little jittery when you say risk. Just make the translation opportunity, right? Just even the word is beautiful. It lets more air come into your body. Think of every risk as an opportunity. Be deliberate, but finding product market fit. I've had a chance to engage with a few startups, and the thing that stands out to me really is where people hope they have product market fit, but don't engage in it as a deliberate exercise. It's the single most important thing you're going to do till you find product market fit. If you don't have product market fit, nothing else matters, right? Not culture, not sales. It all dies away. And then last, find your tribe. When you find your tribe will find you. That's all I had.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Kumar, for sharing your amazing story here. So let's get started with some questions. I'll start with the first one, and then we have a number of them from the audience. So my first question is, just if you reflect back, right, when you were growing up, so was there anything that you think now in hindsight that inspired you that you wanted to become an entrepreneur? Because you were kind of doing very well midway through, read that in some articles as well. when you decided to take the plunge? And of course, you shared some part of it earlier, but I wanted you to kind of go back and think about your childhood. Was there something which kind of said, okay?
I don't know if there was too much to the childhood, but I just go back to the city I grew up in. Right, I grew up in Mumbai, and I think of Mumbai as the city of hustle, the city of jugaad. Right, I place a lot of value on hustle, and I mean hustle in the nicest way. Right, sometimes people have maybe a more pejorative interpretation of hustle. To me, hustle is very simple. It is unrelenting grit and knowing that you're always going to be in forward motion, having a bias to action, right? Wanting to do something useful, wanting to do something that makes a mark. I think what helps all of us really is finding what makes us tick, right? And that what makes us tick can change over time, realizing it, acknowledging it. In my case, I remember when I did my MBA, right? When I signed up for my MBA, like most of us or many of us that have written all these admission essays, I wrote lengthy essays about stories on why I wanted to do the MBA. The reality was I didn't know. Here's what I knew. What I knew is that the jobs where I couldn't find the immediate visceral impact of my work, they were not inspirational for me at all. And so I was really seeking to do something where, for me, if I know the impact of my work, that, hey, I show up, this is what I can do. I don't show up, this is what doesn't happen. That is very satisfying to me. It's different for all of us. So startup, yeah, you know you're going to have some impact.
That's great. Thank you, Kumar. So let me start with the audience question. First one is from Zach. I'm sure you know him. You've been a mentor to many people, in him included, during your time at CloudGenix. So who was a mentor to you during your time at CloudGenix? That's the question.
So that's a great question, and I'm in the debt of a very large number of mentors. I'll give I'll give one story, and I think it's okay for me to mention her by name, Jayshree Ulal, right? And actually, early on when we were fundraising, we were getting our ass kicked on Sandal Road, right? In Hindi, you say "jute gisge," right? It feels sometimes like going from VC to VC. The soles of your shoes are getting scraped off. And I remember my co-founder who knew her, and I met with her just to get guidance. She's one of the brightest marketing minds that I know of. So she had some great input, advice, guidance on, hey, maybe tweak your pitch this way, because we'd raised plenty of money in the context of large companies. This was raising it from people that maybe weren't as familiar with networking. She had great advice and everything else, but she did something that I think I'll never forget. We had visited her at Arista's offices, and I forget which floor, maybe let's just say 6th or 7th floor it was. The meeting went really long. It was set up for 30 minutes. She took an hour and a half. People were knocking on the door. She's the CEO of a public company. She kept shooing everyone away. And then at the end of the conversation, she actually walks with us all the way down to the parking lot, right? I think what she recognized was that our shoulders were slouching a little, right? Our backbones weren't as firm. And she just recognized that, hey, these two entrepreneurs, they just need a boost. That's what they really need. And not only her words, but her action about giving us so much respect, giving us so much importance, it carried over when we went back to Sandal Road and we landed our funding pretty aggressively. So I think it's not only about the words that people say, it's also about what people do for you that matters so much.
Yeah, she's absolutely, that's an awesome mentor to have, and guidance. So next question is from Venkat Rangan. Some of you already know Venkat. He's founder of Clary. Hi Venkat, how are you? So he's basically talks about Bill Campbell in his $1 trillion quote says, work the people and not the problem. Did you have to make any fundamental changes on leadership team and their responsibilities? And what are your thoughts on figuring out committed leaders?
So the people part of these journeys are the most rewarding and the most frustrating. Because people, it turns out, we're all complex creatures. Yes, we did have to, right? So what we found, some of the things we found were the proverbial thing. People that had done great things in different places, they weren't necessarily suited. I think there is a difference between people that build from zero to something and the people that take something and scale it up. And I underestimated oftentimes how different those skill sets are. On a super positive note, there is one person, I'll leave him unnamed, but he joined the company, and when he joined, he came in this managerial role, wasn't a great fit at that time, a small team, wasn't his comfort zone. He, talking of commitment, he took on an individual contributor role, right? And he was working it. And when the company got big, oddly enough, someone that couldn't cut it as manager when we were much smaller, when the company got big, whoop, he went right back and he led the team. What was crazy and great about that journey was his trust that we had his back, his willingness to move from a managerial role to individual contributor, and then candidly, our leadership that said, hey, you know what? He's the guy that we're going to bring back. It was very counterintuitive set of decisions unless you truly understood that the person is flexible, committed, and our team truly understood his skill sets.
Yeah, great example. So next question is from Aubrey Aloysius. Is saying, we are creating a new market category in music tech, ed tech, edutainment, focusing on Western music instruments and Indian instruments, etc. We are a bootstrap startup based in India with customers coming in from across 5 continents over the past 16 months. We strongly feel we need to raise funds ASAP. How do we raise funds from USA-based investors? So if you want to comment on that.
So it's tricky, right? So, let's not sugarcoat it. I think if your entire team is based in India, at least chances of raising from the Valley, that wouldn't be my pivot. That wouldn't be my overarching focus. I would look for local investors. I would look for people that understand your local market, the market you're serving, and try to raise money from them. If you're looking to raise, in the end, it's hard for people to make bets when they can't touch you, feel you, understand you. So the good news, there's a pretty healthy, thriving entrepreneurial scene and VC scene in India. Absolutely go and raise money from them. I think when you think about raising money, right, spend time in the shoes of the investor, right? I think all of us entrepreneurs, we spend very little time in the shoes of the investor, unfortunately. We do a great job usually of spending time in the shoes of a customer, right? Most startups, they have great customer-facing decks, but shitty VC-facing decks, right? And it's because we look at, hey, this whole fundraising as a distraction. In fact, even your investor, that's a distraction. Let's get it over with. Well, you're a startup. So you're a dying company till you get funded. Don't treat it as a distraction. Go chips all in, invest time. Usually you'll find people that are willing to give you templates, think like a VC, have people that will do reviews, use forums like this. You're already ahead of the curve. Definitely smarter than me in using forums like this. AJ Crew can put you in touch with the right kind of mentors for your space that can help refine out your pitch. But I would look at local VCs rather than looking, I think one of my friends says, don't try to hunt from the lodge, right? You have to be in the field. Maidan mein utro.
That's great, Kumar. And also just to add to what you're saying, actually most of the Silicon Valley VC funds, Lightspeed, Mayfield itself, they have India offices. So if you're really interested in these funds from Silicon Valley, they have their partners there. So you could reach out to them as well. So okay, next question is from Anand. Great insights, Kumar. What would need to be the absolute next step among us the multiple paths once an idea is born?
So, this is the bias, there is the human condition called inertia, right? That is the one of the biggest issues. If you have an idea, right, first off, start acting on it, right? The number of ideas that don't get acted on, they are legendary. So take the time to try and don't get into the mistake of, hey, what is the problem statement, right? I really anchor on problem statement. What is the problem statement you're solving? Is it a big enough problem statement? Will people pay to have that problem statement solved? Start working on that, right? That needs to be fleshed through, that needs to be worked through. If you get conviction in that, then bail and just do it, right? There's a whole conversation about the relationship of risk. There's probably a separate session to have on the relationship of risk itself. But there's actually studies that show that so much of our aversion to risk comes from a very different circumstance where we were in jungles and we were afraid of the lion eating us. We live in a very different world, right? There are no lions eating you, and the chances that you likely can get a paycheck while doing a startup are pretty darn high. That's what the VC industry does. So do some legwork and then have a bias to action and bias to doing it. But what do I know? I got lucky with this journey.
Thank you, Kumar. So the next question is from Robert Sexton, I think your colleague. You mentioned earlier, how important was culture to the success of CloudGenix?
So, Robert Sexton taught me a very important phrase. He used to say, pressure is a privilege, right? And I never understood that phrase. It just sounded something cute to say, right? Pressure is a privilege. What the hell does that mean? I'd much rather not have pressure, right? Life looks great on a sunny day. And then one day it struck me. We were going after, I think, a Fortune 10 company, ridiculously long campaign. And one day it struck me, there are jobs where you don't have pressure. I'm not going to mention them because I don't mean any disrespect to any vocation. But you all can think of jobs where, the job doesn't give you pressure. Perhaps the economic outcomes of those jobs create pressure in other parts of your lives. But the job itself is not pressure. Invariably, jobs that have pressure come with great responsibility, accountability, etc. And those are the jobs that also then have the opportunity for a lot of reward, right? So seek pressure. Seek the fact that someone gives you pressure, it's a privilege. So I think the story of CloudGenix really was a story of culture, and culture really comes from the people. And I came up with this phrase, and I find it very cute in my own mind. Find your tribe will find you. Meaning that when you find your tribe, part of your tribe is what you become, then you'll have gravitational attraction for the people that hold similar values. It's good to hear from Rob. And, I miss the guy. He's on to his next big thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Kumar. So next question, by the way, it's 7 o'clock. Are you okay for 5 more minutes?
I'm all right.
All right, thank you. So next question is from Vinay Anand. How do you know when to exit? What were some of the factors that influenced you to accept the Palo Alto offer?
So, I think there are two things, right? One is emotion, right? There's definitely, these things have emotion in them. I think part of the job of the CEO is to park the emotion once the company gets funded, right? There is a romantic notion of a startup, and it's important, right? It's part of the vision, the dream, the romance that drives us. But very quickly, the moment you hire your first, the first person that joins the company as an employee, the romance has to give way to responsibility, right? And there is responsibility is awesome. Now, so when you're not then looking at it less just from a dream perspective, the math is very simple. If there's an acquisition opportunity versus a funding opportunity, a funding is always going to have dilution, right? So you look at it and say, hey, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever percent of dilution I'm going to take, how much longer do I have to go to get the valuation that overcomes that dilution so that my people are going to make the same amount, if not better, right? The only reason you take dilution is so that you can make the grape into a watermelon, right? So that the dilution is overcome. If you think the risk adjusted, you're getting a better offer, go take it, right? Now, one of the things I do, I've learned through the journey is there are variables in the hands of the CEO and the board in terms of as these deals get structured, where either people can get screwed or your people cannot get screwed. If you're an entrepreneur, don't screw your people. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Oh,
if you do it, please don't ask me questions.
Very good advice. No, that's awesome. Absolutely. You have to take care of the people who help you get to that point. Next question is from Ian Thomas. Did you ever have people in your life who you were close to who tried to talk you out of your dream? So if so, what did you do to keep the dream alive despite their negativity?
So I think when you go after these kinds of missions, right, there are plenty of people who who are skeptical of what you're doing, right? Now, and with good reason, right? Some people probably have ill will, but some people might actually have genuine, what they see as genuinely your best interest at heart. Which is why I just go back to saying, you really. I cannot emphasize this. I think our relationship with risk is so flawed that it diminishes us. I don't know. I don't have the magical words to make this any more important. But just think deeply. There are books. Read them. Understand the relationship of risk and how it diminishes you because you give in to it. Especially in a circumstance and environment where 99 times out of 100, that risk actually is not, it's counterintuitive, right? What feels more risky oftentimes actually is less risky. I'll give a silly example. Sometimes organizations have changes, they go through, people are moving out, people are getting laid off, or new things are happening. Some people get very scared. Some people look at it and say, hey, in this chaos, there's opportunity, right? Because there has to be chaos for opportunity to come about. It's all about your attitude. So, I try my best to follow a very simple rule. I just stay away from negative people. That's it. So I hang with Matt and Rob as much as I can, and my life is good when I do that.
Yep, that's a great advice. Hang out, hang out with your salespeople.
Well,
most of them are positive. I mean, they're mostly, very optimistic and positive folks. So
hang out with great people.
Yep. So Judy is the next question from Judy. The question is, actually she's asking two questions. What made you think of building a new product? Were there gaps in an existing product you worked on, or was it customer demand? So that's the question. And then did you have a plan B in case things didn't work out with CloudGenix?
So great questions, right? So the first thing was, like I said, we had tremendous conviction on the problem statement. There are very few things that are binary, like black and white. Very few things in life that are black and white. Usually it's like maybe 90%, 80%, some such thing, like 100% conviction. Right? You could wake me up at 3 a.m. in the morning and slice me up, and I'm like, yeah, this problem statement is true. And for this problem statement, all current solutions are significantly suboptimal. We had ridiculous amount of conviction in that. So, through the trial ups and downs, I never lost that conviction. Our team never lost that conviction. And so that was the genesis of it. And I think the second question was there a plan B?
Yes.
No. Burn the boats.
No plan B.
Plan Bs are horrendous. Plan Bs are, what is plan B? It's planning for failure, right? Why would you plan for failure? Plan for success. It's hard enough to plan for success. In fact, most startups fail because you don't plan for success. You get product market fit, and then you haven't raised enough money to truly invest and go to market. You get product market fit, and then you're not going as boldly as you need to in sales. So burn the boats. These things, the human spirit truly shines when you burn the boats. And when you think you have no options reveal themselves.
Yep, absolutely. I totally agree with that. So next question from Celis. I'll just two more questions. Kumar, then we'll let you go and enjoy the evening. So Celis, what values or strengths of a startup like CloudGenix make sense to a larger company, and what strengths can you not take to a larger company?
So, I was talking to Rob Section earlier today, and one of the things we were talking about really was the fact that 100% of CloudGenix customers, right, to date, I can text them, call them, they text me, call me. We actually have become, we have a relationship, right? Maybe not in every case are we friends. In many cases, we are friends. And even if you're not friends, but at least, it's a deep personal relationship of respect. I think it comes because you take your customer's business and treat it as your own. There is a great book, which I'm sure I'm going to forget the name of right now, but it's called Extreme Ownership. I think it's by Jocko Willink, a Navy SEAL. And he really talks about owning the outcome, owning the mission, not the task. What you'll find is that oftentimes, right, especially as the company gets larger, you start creating functional organizations. And in functional organizations, by definition, people own tasks, right? My support team owns a support ticket, right? That's what the support engineer owns. And then when the shift ends, it bounces off to someone else. Who owns the outcome, which is my customer needs to be in a phenomenally good space within 10 minutes, or how much of a time it takes to get that customer right. If you allow for those task-based ownership, then it keeps ping-ponging, and at some point, maybe there is someone that it comes up to a general manager, but usually that person is too high, so your customer gets lost somewhere in the middle, right? So build organizations where you can have extreme ownership, people can own outcomes. And the thing that I've learned as I'm now part of a great large organization is that you have to do two things. Oftentimes we say, oh, my people are empowered to serve the customer or make a decision. It's not enough to empower people. You have to empower and expect, right? So the expectation I have of anybody that works on my team is that, hey, you own the outcome. You are empowered. That's great. But the expectation is also that, hence, given your empowerment, that you own the outcome. You make decisions. It's okay to make bad decisions. That's fine.
Yeah, no, awesome. So next is actually talking about your books. So next question is from Uday. He is asking, what books were influential in your startup journey?
So Extreme Ownership is a great book. There's a book by Ben Horowitz, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's a phenomenal book. I would definitely read it. The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, ridiculously great book. Read it, practice it, implement the methodology. It'll give you a good framework to address product market fit. There's Salesforce, Mark Benioff. He has a book that pretty much lays out the playbook of Salesforce in a very easy to understand manner. And I forget the name of this book, but there is a book on category creation. It's one of the few books on category creation. I'll be remiss if I don't mention two more books. One is The Go-Giver. The Go-Giver, it's a parable almost, right? It's a small little book, a parable, and it really talks about how in the business context, when you give without focusing on the expectation of the receive, great things happen, right? Without frustration. And we actually instituted a Go-Giver award every quarter. And we provided it to our people that demonstrated that value. And the last book I'll call out is, there's a great book on Genghis Khan that I've enjoyed. There are great business lessons. Ignore the horrendous parts of history. But as I get older, I've enjoyed history and some of the ways that people go through grit, challenge, refuse to be cowed down, have great ambition. I think great ambition, small ambition is a crime, right? All of us on this call, we're all ridiculously fortunate people, right? Think about it. Almost everybody on this call is probably in a place where, we have some of my dear friends from CloudGenix who are, reminiscing with me. And then we have several people who are debating, hey, I have this great job, but maybe I'll do this great startup, right? You have choices. Life is wonderful, right? Be bold, have great ambition, make big decisions. It's okay to fail. Nothing bad happens if you fail a little.
Yeah, very good collection of books. Thank you, Kumar, for sharing. Last question from me is, let's say if you had to start a startup today, so basically it's for number of attendees in our event today, and most of them obviously are aspiring entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs who are always thrilled with the idea of something new. So what would you do today in terms of trends in the industry? Let's say if you had to start networking in security area, there are already 3,000 of startups, and I have a joke with a friend of mine. I said, in like this whole Kubernetes or container space, looks like there is less development than the most monitoring companies there. They're monitoring anyway. So So what would be your advice in terms of the trends if you had to start today for some of the folks who are looking for some ideas? Because I know you're going to be at Palo Alto for some time, so maybe someone else can get going.
So maybe I'll give three thoughts on this, right? The first is, I'll go back to problem statements, my friends. So who is asking the question? Believe me when I say that problem statement trumps cool new technology ideas. If you can pay attention to problem statements and ask yourself the question, how will you find problem statements? Do you find problem statements by staring at the screen? Nope. There are no problem statements inside the building. All problems are outside the building in the context of your customers. Get engaged deeply with customers, right? If you're doing a job where you can't engage with customers for whatever reason, like find a different job, right? Organize your life such that you can live in the shoes of your customer. Guaranteed, you do that, you will find problem statements, right? There is no completely solved part of your life. So find problem statements and then start thinking about, hey, is that problem statement a problem statement at scale? Is that problem statement that people will pay money to have solved? That's number one. Number two, yes, I'm a big believer in data science. There's nothing very spectacular I'm saying it when I say it, but I think the way that infrastructure, security, network, most of IT is built today, in 10 years time or how much ever, usually the timeline of the prognostications are usually incorrect, but I'll put some money behind the prognosis. I think right now, today, what is happening is this: data science, AI, ML, etc. That's the little bit of cherry on top of the cake that people are building, right? The darn cake is still based on traditional style models. Look at most companies; they probably have 2 people and a pony that forms the data science team. If you're actually building a data science-based company, it'll be the other way around, right? 90% of your people probably are working on something related to that thing. If you think about the power of data science and where we are with compute, where we are with the ability to scale out massive databases, there's almost no problem domain that cannot be solved better using data science than every method that there is today. If in our industry, we assume, because 30 years ago, people had needed, or 20 years ago, people needed armies of CCIEs and security people to run infrastructure. Your Tesla car runs, for the most part, without you having to do anything. They're sending autonomous rockets into space. Just think about it, right? People are assuming status quo because they don't know better. The third thing I'll say on finding an idea, all of my ideas are stolen. Nothing is original. It's from Steve Blank, and it's a great way to pay respect to someone that I hold in tremendous esteem. When I took the course on entrepreneurship from him in UC Berkeley, he actually, as part of the project work, he says, the project was, we actually would work on a project in a team, present to real VCs. So he said, come up with real darn ideas. And we were like, hello, sir, how do we come up with a great idea? And if you could come up with a great idea, wouldn't we be out in the valley building companies instead of doing MBA? He says, no, do it. Every day, write down 3 problem statements or 3 ideas. The first day will be somewhat easy because most of us have something in the back of our mind. The second day is going to be a little painful. The third day is going to 4-letter word your mind up because you're going to be stuck. Right. He says, stay at it. Force yourself. You don't go to sleep till the time you write down 3 things. The brain is a muscle. What you'll find is that the 4th day will be exponentially difficult. The 5th day is going to feel suicidal. The 6th day, your brain starts flowing. You start seeing problems everywhere, right? And we actually went through that journey. Most of my class, we went through that journey. And a weekend, we were like writing, like not earth-shaking ideas, but stuff was flowing. So do it.
Yeah, no, that's really great advice. Thank you, Kumar, so much for taking the time. But by the way, for all the attendees, Kumar sent me worked on the slides early morning at 2 o'clock. I have to say that.
It was a complete treat digging into the treasure trove of.
I know you did. That's awesome, and it was beautiful.
I will say this. Especially since we have a few folks from CloudGenix and we have maybe aspiring entrepreneurs. It was a journey of a lifetime, right? There is nothing on planet Earth I would trade that journey for. And the biggest joy of the journey was the relationships, right? It's the people part of it. So, find your tribe will find you. And once you find your tribe, those bonds will never go away.
No, that's a great. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate it again and taking the time from your busy. I know you had a product launch also today. So I really appreciate truly you coming and sharing, and really great nuggets of wisdom. And in fact, so many books you talked about, which some of them I have to still read. So for all the attendees, we'll have a My Story session next month on October 12th. Another security company, a lot of security companies are getting bought for the My Story. This is Srinivas Mukamula. He was the founder of RiskSense, bought by Ivanti. So anyway, so be ready and join. And with that, I would like to, AZK, if you want to say something. Then
No, I really wanted to thank Kumar for the words of wisdom, as I always say. So I just want the audience to pick few of those and try to implement it for their own journey. So thanks again for taking the time, and from Kumar, and of course Naveen, for doing this religiously now, right? So I can't believe that you have lined up things till the end of the year. So that's excellent.
Yeah, and all of my security, because I know so many folks there. Thank you, Kumar, again. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.